Good afternoon. Is this working? Doesn't seem like it's working. Is it working now? I'll be darned. If I didn't know Mike, I wouldn't say, down in front, please, down in front. Hi, everybody. Welcome to today's DemoForum. I'm Bill Dalton, and you're not. For those of you who remember Saturday Night Live, I just loved Chevy Chase. I really did. So, anyways, really glad to have you all here. This is a wonderful opportunity, part of not only DemoForum, but the opportunity to hear from and about our candidates. So I'd like to just do a few introductions first in terms of the folks who are here, and then we'll move right into the opportunity for Paul Evans to share with us. So first of all, we've got quite a list here. If anybody is left off of this list, I think we should give them an opportunity to introduce themselves after the forum. But the list grows, and it's sort of exciting. I'm looking forward to a time when everybody here is either a candidate or an elected official or is actively working on a campaign. And as I look around, I think we've come awfully close to that. So it's really exciting to be here with y'all. So let me start with elected officials, family, staff members. Marcia Kelly, who's a elected member of Salem Kaiser Transit. And we have, of course, we have a Steve Evans from the Salem Kaiser. He hasn't arrived yet. We will have Steve Evans, who's also a member of Salem Kaiser Transit District. Of course, we have, no, we don't, but we have Carol. Brian Clem's wife, Carol, has joined us today. I understand that Brian had an emergency of a professional business nature and couldn't come today. Is that correct? But thank you so much for coming. We're delighted to have you here. Any of the children with you today? No kids? Okay. I was going to say, they grow fast, but okay. And Dan Baum, legislative assistant to Brian Clem. In addition to Paul Evans, I'm delighted to say that we have some other candidates for public office. We have Wanda Davis, who's a candidate for state representative in House District 23. And we'll be hearing from her in a couple minutes. I think she'll be doing the introduction for Paul. And we also have Bill Dalton, candidate for state representative, District 19. And I'd like to say a few words. Oh, no, wait a minute. It's Paul's turn, right? Okay. I'll hold off. We're very fortunate to have campaign staff. I don't want to leave out anybody. Waylon is listed here, Waylon Buchan, Matt Scott, and Dr. Molly Mayhead, all with Paul Evans' campaign. If you just raise your hand, please. And my campaign manager, Paul Muse, and a number of my volunteers, but I should not name them by name because none of them gave me extra money today. So, party officials, James Sundell, Vice President, the Marion County Central Committee. Sundell, thank you. Especially after you turned out Saturday, at least I could get your name right. Thanks, James. Raymond Dukes, who is always behind our videos. And of course, the DemoForum team, without whom this would not be such an exciting opportunity and possibility. Andy Bromlin, Leanne Bromlin, Cassia Quillinan, Dave Angan, Mary Campy. Thanks so much to all of them. So we'll have a number of announcements afterwards, but what I would like to do right now is move right into our program. Wanda, I understand that you're going to be doing the introduction for Paul. So this is just a wonderful parade of candidates. We're all finding a way of getting a little bit of limelight today. Wanda is just a treasure, and so we're so glad to have her here.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you very much, Bill. I just want to say, Paul Evans has lived a life of service, and he continues to do so today. In earlier years, he was a city councilor and a mayor. He was a volunteer firefighter, so was I. A major in the U.S. Air Force. He served under Ted Kulangoski, working on veterans issues, among many other things. He continues to work as an educator. There's far more to Paul's resume, but you can look that up on his website. That's paulevans.org if you want to know more. I'm a Navy veteran. At a time when this country is making far more new veterans than we seem to be willing to support on their return from war, I thank Paul for looking out for them. He also has ideas that'll help all Oregonians prosper, but I'll let him tell you about those. I know Paul best as a friend and a mentor. When I need direction or input on my own campaign, he makes time for me. I believe he does this because he understands that the more good people we have on the team, the more we can get done for the good of all Oregon. With that, I give you my friend, Paul Evans.
I'm always tempted after a nice introduction like that to just stop there. Go. Yes, right. First of all, thank you very much for that introduction and nice words from both. One of the rare treats about campaigns is you actually get to know people. And I'm blessed with friends that are running for office at the same time, as well as a lot of friends that are helping all of us try to run for office. I want to thank all of you also for attending this forum. I know that making time in your schedule these days is not easy. Life seems to be more and more busy than it used to be. And for all of us candidates, I think I can say this opportunity is a rare treat where we get a chance to share some ideas, to talk directly with you about what we hope for the future, and to have some of our ideas viewed on CCTV. I must confess, as I prepared for talking today, I had a plan going in. And like most plans, after initial contact, it got a little bit adjusted. That initial contact for me was this past week. Two events this past week really convicted my conscience to talk about some things today that are a little bit unusual for a political speech. The first is a mental health forum that we had that hopefully has begun airing around this area. Mental health is one of those issues that generally does not get the emphasis. And again, I'm not an expert in mental health, but I'm grateful for mental health services, and I'll explain why in a little bit. The other thing that really kind of hit me out of the blue was yesterday as I was going door to door, as I looked down on the list that Matt so nicely prepared for me, there was a name I wasn't familiar with, and that's because since the time I knew her, she had remarried. Her name is Shirley. I'll leave her last name out. She was a very good friend of my mom, and there's not many people that actually knew my mom. My mom passed away in 1990 from cancer, and this particular lady was one of my mom's more fun and unusual and wild friends. Shirley had the Trans Am that my mom had before her, sold it to my mom in a little bit of a discussion with her at the time husband, sold it to my mom for half price, and then went out and bought a Camaro for 3 times the amount, and they drove Camaro and Trans Am around Polk County, much to the chagrin of most of the law enforcement throughout Polk County. Shirley's now dying of cancer herself, and she asked that I sat down and had a chance to talk with her. I hadn't talked with her for probably 12 years. And she asked, why are you running and what's going on, and grilled me a little bit in good humor. And she reminded me that ultimately she and people like her are why we should be running. Shirley worked for the state. She retired out of working for corrections. She's a middle-class person. She generally played by the rules, generally treated people better than she was treated, and did the best she could with what she was given. She tells me she's ready for the next chapter. I say that her life and her example is one that shouldn't be forgotten. And ultimately, I was convicted by this story and the discussion at the Mental Health Forum. I say that because at the Mental Health Forum, one of the things that was emphasized by my good friend Tom Mann is that sometimes through narrative, through story, through own experiences, you may be able to uplift and help and make other people feel that the path is a little more possible, a little more plausible. Now, today I have 3 goals. First is to tell you a little bit about me, but not the stuff that you've probably already heard about. The second is ultimately to talk about what this campaign, I think, is about. And the third is to ask you for help. But the last thing I'm going to ask you today is something you're probably not going to expect. But I think it's essential for the tone of the rest of the campaign. So let's start with a little bit about me that you may not know. Behind the resume, behind the city council, the time as mayor, the time on the school board, the time with Governor Kulingoski, the times as volunteer firefighter, the times as a soldier, there were family and friends, a church and a community and a neighborhood that stood behind me. Through decisions good and bad, through mistakes made privately and publicly, though I tell you, living in a small town, your mistakes are never terribly private. Redemption is a gift that is given by the heart. It's given through action. It's given through the knowing support of people that love you despite yourself. I say that because as a veteran, that is an essential key for what is on everybody's TV screens right now as we are re-attacking Iraq, Syria, and ISIS, as we are embroiled in what may be another long-term war upon the last 2 long-term wars. It's on the minds and the hearts, certainly around the tables of all the military families and the parents and the loved ones that are associated with it. So I felt convicted to tell you just a little bit about what being a veteran means, the good, the bad, and the ugly. It means that sometimes you miss birthdays. It means sometimes you break relationships. It means sometimes you make decisions that at the time don't even make sense, but certainly with time and wisdom really don't make sense. About 4 years ago, after trying to hide from myself, I was forced with a choice of either selling a farm or getting help. And I want to tell you, and whoever may be viewing today, that between my pastor, my family, my friends, and the VA, I was able to get help and start rebuilding a life. Now, I say that because it isn't like there's a shiny little PTSD on your chest when you're walking around. There's no little marker. One of the things about mental health is that many people have different types of things and they operate every day and no one knows, or at least nobody knows for sure. My point in sharing that is that we are all in this together. 46% of Americans will at some point have to access mental health. 1 in 4 people on a monthly basis go through different varying forms of depression. I don't think that's, by the way, increased from time. I just think we're a little more aware now and hopefully a little more sensitive about working together through those things. I say all of that to say this. The next phase of the campaign is going to be goofy. The next part of the campaign, because our opponents are running out of things to say, and sometimes not even showing up to say them, this next phase is going to get goofy because ultimately they're on the wrong side of history, they're on the wrong side of the issues, and on the wrong side of our community. So they've got to make stuff up. We've been through tough times before, and in fact, we're excited with Team Evans because we're at this point in the campaign with 40 days and a wake-up left. We've been to more doors, we've had more conversations, we've had more forums, we've put our value systems out there, and we're excited about this campaign in a way that I, quite frankly, at the beginning didn't know we could get that excited. All of the people in this room and some that are going to be watching this via television have been gracious, supportive. Even the folks that aren't voting for us have been pretty much 99% of the time polite and understanding. That's why, by the way, I joined the military. That's why I believe in public service. It's why I believe, in my family anyway, it was expected that you give more than you get, so that the community as a whole, the nation as a whole, the state as a whole has an opportunity through all of those different people giving of themselves to lift everybody up. Because this campaign ultimately is not about me. It's not about my opponent. It's not about my opponent's friends. It's not about all the kinds of things that folks are going to try to convince you of over the next 3 weeks. This campaign is about you. It's about the kind of nation, the kind of state, the kind of community you want, and more importantly, the kind that you're willing to work for. And conversely, the kind of community we will become if you don't work and if you don't fight for what you believe in. One of the things they teach you at campaign school is stay on message. Stay on message. So here's the message. This campaign is about trying to make sure that people like Shirley have access to health care so they may have a fighting chance to live as long and a quality of life as possible. This campaign is about the folks that try to make a living and generally can't do so anymore on minimum wage. This economy is about the 2/3 of minimum wage earners that are women that are trying to, in many cases, keep a family together. This campaign is about whether we will accept the false trade-offs of an economy or an environment, or say, no, that's actually not a fair trade. We can have an oasis of innovation even as we have bicycle lanes, good parks, and an environment to enjoy. This campaign is about liberty. You're saying to yourself, what is he talking about now? This campaign is about whether or not women are equal, not just in pay, which we need to do a better job of, but whether or not the state will determine for women whether or not women will have babies or not, and whether or not we will replace a woman's conscience with a bureaucracy, which for the life of me, I cannot understand at all. This campaign is ultimately about whether or not we are satisfied with the top 0.5% of Americans currently owning 40% of the nation's wealth and exponentially growing that amount of control of wealth, even as the American dream begins to wither. See, what's going to happen over the next several weeks is the folks that don't want progress are going to do everything they possibly can to try to explain to the Oregon public that they should vote against their better interests. They're going to try to scare them. They're going to try to use all kinds of labels. They're going to try to dig up all kinds of things, some true, some not true. They're going to put the worst possible lens on every possible thing. Because at the end of the day, we're on the right side of history, or more specifically, the left side of history. I say this because with 40 plus days coming, I'm reminded of the story of Noah. Let them go the way they will go. We will be on our ark and we will be okay. We have to believe that government, never the perfect solution, nor generally the problem, government is a facilitator. Government must be there to stand in to make sure people have guaranteed opportunity. That means education. Education means schools. Schools full of children that can learn, that are ready to learn, that aren't hungry, that have access to good health care, that have some sense of a family unit and aren't homeless. It means that we are going to have a focus on building small businesses and recognize that for the first time in American history, small businesses actually carry more of the regulatory burden than the large businesses, and somehow the large businesses have convinced the small businesses that that's okay? We have to decide whether or not we are satisfied with an America that somehow has forgotten how to dream. Now, I wasn't alive when this happened, but my family was shaped by it. And I don't know if Kennedy was sober when he said it or not, but at one time he said they were going to go to the moon. They said they were going to go to the moon, in his words, not because it was easy, but because it was hard. When did we stop thinking, when did we stop accepting that good things are hard? When did we stop believing that we are greater than the sum of our parts? And when did we stop expecting every person to give what they can, when they can, for the greater good? You see, here's the deal. The fundamental difference between Democrats and Republicans isn't nanny state versus liberty. The difference is we believe the American dream is supposed to be there for all Americans, even the people you don't like, even the people that are different. Perhaps they speak a different language. Perhaps they worship God in a different way. This election, these next 40 days, is all about you. It's all about the kind of Oregon you are willing to give every possible hour, every possible moment, every possible spare dollar. I'm not asking just for me, though I certainly need your help. Every candidate that is running on our values, the value of hard work, the value of education, the value of giving more than you got, the value of intergenerational promise, the value of living up to the preamble of the Constitution. It says we're supposed to make sure that our posterity has it better than we do. If you believe in that America, if you believe in that kind of Oregon, if you are ready to have Eden reborn, it starts with this election. And here's why. The other team doesn't think you're going to actually turn out. The other team is betting that they have so bloodied the Congress and so bloodied the president that they have made Democrat and devil synonymous, that they have gone after progressives, that they have said that we're squishy and all that, to the point that we're just not going to show up. Everybody knows that during off-cycle elections, Democrats don't show up. They were pretty sure Truman was going to lose too, and he didn't. It's up to you. If you want this particular election, if you want this particular Oregon to move forward, it has everything to do with you. If you talk to 10 friends, if those 10 friends talk to another 10 friends, you can quite literally turn the balance in a legislative race. So here's the deal. I'm going to stop the preaching and get down to the asking. 1, I need your time, your talent, your treasure. This Saturday, 10 a.m., at our headquarters, we're trying to have the big bada boom canvas. I didn't name it, but it's a big canvas. I need your help. I need you as an ambassador going to doors, as many as we can, to other real life people, looking them in the eye and saying, look, Evans ain't perfect, but he cares. He may not know all the answers, but he's in your corner. And by golly, he's at least trainable. And he'll show up. I also need, in addition to your time, your talent, your treasure, I need you to reach out to 10 friends. All of you in this room know at least 10 people that live in House 20. Whether or not you live in House 20, get 10 people in House 20 to vote. Now here's the third thing, and it's going to be a little bit scary for some. As I was walking and thinking and talking with some friends, I remembered that one of the best parts about being a person of faith is the acceptance and the fallibility of the human spirit. And Lord knows, those of you that know me, I am more fallible than many. But I believe that redemption is possible. I believe that faith, hope, and love are still the most powerful forces in the universe. And I still believe, at least in my faith, that my personal Savior went to the cross even for the guy Judas who made sure he got killed. Now, I don't know that I'm that big a guy, but I know this. I'm asking everybody in this room to not only pray for us this campaign, but to pray for our opponents. Because at the end of the day, we have to be able to wrap this whole thing back up and govern. This campaign is going to be goofy. The other team's going to take hits that we're not going to hit. I hit on issues. I don't go after personal attacks because at the end of the day, I'm not perfect. I don't think anybody else should try to be perfect. But the only way we're going to weather this storm that's coming, I believe, is through meditation and prayer, through hard work, and through telling the truth louder than they tell the lies. So that's my ask. I need your help this campaign. If you want something better, we can have it. But we have to start shooting for the moon and believing it's possible again. Thank you. I think we have time for a few questions, is that right?
Absolutely. You can't get away without it. Who's got the microphone?
Steve Kenny has the microphone.
That's great.
So,
Paul, go for it.
Wait for Steve to give you the microphone.
I'm Dana Barrichello.
Yes, ma'am.
There was a letter, a wonderful letter from Kelly Swain.
Yes.
Also a letter, again, saying that you're doing polling calls where you're accusing whatever, they sounded really outrageous. Could you put that to rest?
Sure. First, the letter was awesome. Thank you very much. I was humbled when I read it and excited that they printed it. So, here's the deal. In July, yes, July, it's September. In July, there was a poll that was conducted by our allies. In this poll, there were 54 questions asked. There were positive and negative perspectives about positions about the candidates, not personal, but positions. And there was one particular article that my opponent wrote that was somewhat goofy. And when they put the question out there, it was mischaracterized by Senator Winters and by some others, and then sworn to by the Republican election folks, that we had suggested that my opponent was supporting use of drugs with women, which we, number one, wouldn't do, and number two, I was confused how they could draw that assumption. But it wasn't a push poll. Push poll has 5 legal tests. Ours, by no definition under the sun, was a push poll. They know this. We wrote a legal memo. It's been given to her. It's been given to her supporters. In fact, the lady that wrote the letter, I handed her one at the 9/12 event, because ultimately I believe in full disclosure. Now, was it a question that, looking back, should have probably been in there? I think it probably shouldn't have been, but it was her words on an issue of importance. And quite frankly, the point of the question had nothing at all to do with what was reported, but rather a somewhat unconventional conventional view of why people use drugs. That was really what was trying to be asked, and it was just not teased out terribly well. So, bottom line is this: no, I don't do push polls. 2, push polls generally are 3 or 4 questions. They're not 54 questions. In fact, I got complaints because that poll was 18 minutes long. So I was on one hand upset because it was too long and too scientific, and on the other hand getting hits because it was a push poll when they knew it wasn't. And quite frankly, what happened is, in politics, in this particular case, we knew it was goofy, she said it. She knew it was goofy, they said it. So they decided to basically make it a non-issue by calling us a liar. Wish they wouldn't have done that, but it didn't surprise me. So that's what happened. Hopefully that puts it to bed. The memo is available, anybody that wants it. The press has had it for a month and a half. We've handed it out at every event. Molly can get you a copy if you want.
Here?
Yep.
I was very pleased to see that the Marion County Farm Bureau
Yes.
endorsed your candidacy. I'm
Yeah.
very happy. And I'd like to know if you have a feeling for what it was that you said to them that helped get that endorsed.
I think that there were 3 things